Hello everyone, welcome back, and we're having part 2 of Hansel and Gretel this time. This is a Grimm's fairy tale, and this tale is not intended for children. If you'd like to see part 1 or any of the other fairy tales I've presented, check them out in my Storytime playlist. Okay, so where we left Hansel and Gretel, they had tried to find their way homes, but the birds had eaten the breadcrumbs, and they were exhausted and had fallen asleep under a tree in the dark woods. It was now the 3rd morning since they had left their father's house. They were always trying to get back to it, but instead of that, they only found themselves further in the wood, and if help had not soon come, they would have been starved. About noon, they saw a pretty snow-white bird sitting on a bough and singing so sweetly that they stopped to listen. And when he had finished, the bird spread his wings and flew before them, and they followed after him until they came to a little house, and the bird perched upon the roof. And when they came nearer, they saw the house was built of bread and roofed with cakes, and the window was of transparent sugar. "We will have some of this," said Hansel, "and make a fine meal. I shall eat a piece of the roof, and Gretel, you can have some of the window. That will taste sweet." So Hansel reached up and he broke off a bit of the roof just to see how it tasted, and Gretel stood by the window and she gnawed at it a bit. And then they heard a thin voice call from outside, "Nibble, nibble like a mouse, who is nibbling at my house?" And the children answered, "Never mind, it is the wind." And they went on eating, never disturbing themselves. Hansel, who found that the roof tasted very nice, took down a great piece of it. And Gretel pulled out a large round window pane and sat down and began upon it. Then the door opened, and an aged woman came out, leaning upon a crutch. Hansel and Gretel felt very frightened, and they let fall what they had in their hands. The old woman, however, nodded her head and said, "Ah, my dear children, how come you here? You must come indoors and stay with me. You will be no trouble at all." So she took them each by the hand and led them into her little house. And there they found a good meal laid out of milk and pancakes and sugar and apples and nuts. And after that she showed them 2 little white beds, and Hansel and Gretel laid themselves down and thought they were in heaven. The old woman, although her behavior was so kind, was a wicked witch, who lay in wait for children and who had built the little house on purpose to entice them. When they were once inside, she used to kill them and cook them and eat them, and then it was feast day for her. The witch's eyes were red, and she could not see very far, but she had a keen scent like a beast, and she knew very well when human creatures were near. When she knew that Hansel and Gretel were coming, she gave a spiteful laugh and said triumphantly, "I have them, and they shall not escape me." Early in the morning, before the children were awake, she got up to look at them, and as they lay sleeping so peacefully with round, rosy cheeks, she said to herself, "Oh, what a fine feast I shall have." And she grasped Hansel with her withered hand, and she led him into a little stable, and she shut him up behind a grating. And call and scream as he might, it was no good. Then she went back to Gretel, and she shook her, and she told her, "Get up, lazy bones, fetch water and cook something nice for your brother. He is outside in the stable, and he must be fattened up. And when he is fat enough, I will eat him." Gretel began to weep bitterly, but it was no use. She had to do what the wicked witch bade her to do. And so the best kind of victuals were cooked for poor Hansel, while Gretel got nothing but crab shells. Each morning the old woman visited the little stable and cried, "Hansel, stretch out your finger that I may tell if you shall soon be fat enough." Hansel, however, used to hold out a little bone, and the old woman, who had weak eyes, could not see what it was, and supposing it to be Hansel's finger, wondered very much that it was not getting fatter. When 4 weeks had passed, and Hansel seemed to remain so thin, she lost patience and could wait no longer. "Now then, Gretel," cried she to the little girl, "be quick and draw water. Be Hansel fat or be he lean, tomorrow I will kill and cook him." Oh, what a grief for the poor little sister to have to fetch water, and how the tears flowed over her cheeks. "Oh, dear God, pray help us," cried she. "If we had been devoured by a wild beast in the wood, at least we should have died together." "Spare me your lamentations, child," said the old woman. "They are of no avail." Early next morning, Gretel had to get up, make the fire, and fill the kettle. "First we will do the baking," said the old woman. "I've heated the oven already and kneaded the dough." She pushed poor Gretel towards the oven, out of which the flames were already shining. "Creep in the oven," said the witch, "and see if it is properly hot, so that the bread may be baked." And Gretel, once in, she meant to shut the door upon her and let her be baked, and then she would have eaten her. But Gretel perceived her intention and said, "I don't know how to do it. How shall I get in?" "Oh, stupid goose," said the woman. "Opening is big enough, do you see? Here, I could get in myself." And she stooped down, and she put her head in the oven's mouth. Then Gretel gave her a push, so that she went in even further, and then she shut the iron door upon her and put up the bar. Oh, how frightfully she howled! But Gretel ran away and left the wicked witch to burn miserably. Gretel went straight to Hansel, opened the stable door, and cried, "Hansel, we are free, the wicked witch is dead." Then out flew Hansel like a bird from its cage as soon as the door was opened. How rejoiced they both were! How they fell on each other's neck, and danced about, and kissed each other. And as they had nothing more to fear, they went over all of the witch's house, and in every corner there stood chests of pearls and precious stones. "This is something better than flint stones," said Hansel as he filled his pockets, and Gretel, thinking she also would like to carry something home with her, filled her apron full. "Now away we go," said Hansel, "if we only can get out of the witch's wood." When they had journeyed a few hours, they came to a great piece of water. "We can never get across this," said Hansel. "I see no stepping stones or bridge." "And there's no boat either," said Gretel. "But here comes a white duck. If I ask her, she will help us over." So Gretel cried, "Duck, duck, here we stand, Hansel and Gretel upon the land. Stepping stones and bridge we lack, carry us over on your nice white back." And the duck came accordingly, and Hansel got upon her and told his sister to come too. "No," answered Gretel, "that would be too hard upon the duck. We can go separately, one after the other." And that was how it was managed, and after that they went on happily until they came to the wood, and the way grew more and more familiar, till at last they saw in the distance their father's house. Then they ran till they came upon it, and they rushed in at the door, and they fell on their father's neck. The man had not had a quiet hour since he left his children in the wood, but his wife was quite dead. And when Gretel opened her apron, the pearls and precious stones were scattered all over the room, and Hansel took one handful after another out of his pockets. Then was all care at an end, and they lived happily in great joy together. Sing every one, my story is done, and look round the house, there runs a little mouse. He that can catch her before she scampers in, may make himself a very large fur cap out of her skin. That is the end. Thanks for joining me and my pal Marina. We'll be back again with another story time. And until then, y'all be sweet.